Okay, hello. I've set up a little situation here which will allow me to record all of my research for my final year project this year, where I'll be investigating the feasibility of live streaming immersive audio formats for virtual reality. Now, before I start getting up to date with what I've done to the project so far, I'm just going to take a moment to run through exactly how I've set up this little recording situation, as I'm going to be using it hopefully twice a week just as a kind of video diary or a vlog, so that it's easy to share with others and also easy for me to come back and review what I've done and where I'm at without having to endlessly take notes, reams and reams of paper, and I'm not very good at taking notes. So what I've essentially got, if we just move over to here, is this. So this is the screen where I'm running OBS, which is a free broadcasting piece of software. I'm taking the camera feed from my phone, which is just there, which I'm looking at. Hello. And if we pop this one up here, I've got one with a little. So if I'm trying to explain things that are on the screen, but you still need to see me, there are shots with me in the bottom corner, nice and easy. So that's coming from my phone using this little app, and it's coming in as a live camera stream, which we're bringing into OBS here. I've got the audio you can see here coming through as desktop audio. Now that's coming actually from Reaper. So if we pop over to this screen here, let's do it without me on for the time being. So you can see my mic feed coming in here, and actually I'm monitoring that directly because there's quite a bit of latency with all the processing that I'm doing to the signal in Reaper to kind of make it hopefully what will be a decent broadcast mix or level. If we pop on over to Reaper, there's quite a bit going on here, but essentially I've got a channel here where I'm bringing the audio in, and if we bring up the preferences, I'm actually recording at the moment so you can't see it. Anyway, we're coming in via my Focusrite Sapphire, and then we're going out via Soundflower, which is how I'm bringing it in to OBS via Soundflower. Now, I set up a little bit of a broadcast chain here so that, as you can see, we're running close to EBU 128, which is minus 23 LUFS, which is great. And so first thing in my chain is we've got an EQ up here, and all we're basically doing is cutting the lows and cutting the highs. There's nothing particularly wrong with this vocal. It sounds good, it's clear, so we're keeping that. I've got a compressor in line here. It seems to be hitting quite hard, but it means that if I sit back here, we're still getting the same kind of level as if I'm a lot closer. Next to that, I have a de-esser just to pull out any sibilance from the vocal, a denoiser because it's not the greatest microphone in the world, so we're using the RX6 voice denoiser, not 7, as haven't managed to upgrade to that. We've got VisLM here, that's telling me what we're running at, what our readings are and stuff, loudness wise. And then I've got the Nugent True Peak limiter, which is really great, clean, clear limiter. So nothing fancy going on with this signal here. And then that's coming over to OBS, which is what I'm gonna switch over to now. Ta-da! So this is the screen we're on. Pardon me. Right, now that's out of the way, I want to start talking exactly about what I'm doing for my final year project. Sorry. And how I decided to, how I came to the to the idea even of doing it. So I'm gonna pull up. Right. Let's come across here. So about earlier this year, in around March. Let's do a bit of put my face on this as well, shall we? In around March this year, I was working with the university. In fact, this whole project goes back a lot further than this. So a few years ago, I undertook a project with the university, working creating some audio recordings for virtual reality with the Power Orchestra at the Colston Hall. We did two of these videos. One was with the Power Orchestra, and one was just before they shut the hall for refurbishment. It's now being refurbished with all of the primary schools in the Bristol area. So we made two of these videos, and from moving on from these videos, I gained contact of Martin Gernon, who runs Brass Plus TV. This enterprise that he runs is basically, it's an OTT and live streamed company that takes brass bands performances, records them, and live streams them up onto his paywalled website. Now, he saw the video and was very interested in how this might be applied, virtual reality might be applied to the live streaming world, which is something that I had considered myself while undertaking these projects. Now, earlier this year, it got to a point where there had been consultations and people had been talking about this, and I was commissioned to produce this virtual reality technologies for live music scoping report, which you can see on the screen here. Now, in this, I explored in a very kind of holistic and broad sense the current possibilities, the softwares, the cameras, general workflows, but like advised workflows rather than research. Well, they were research, but rather than it being a further exploration and a deep research, this was more, this is actually available, and it is currently, and this is its form, and this is where we might go. So I looked at in terms of workflows, and then we looked at some things, some industry backed kind of workflows that are currently in circulation. We looked at different cameras, and all specifications of different ways to create these network architectures, which is going to be probably the first place that I explore in my literature review for my final year project. We also looked at things like software solutions, so the kind of audio suites that are already on the market to create the spatial audio to go with the video. Now, this report was very much we're looking at everything, which is not what I'm trying to achieve with my final year project. My final year project, as I'll come on to shortly, is definitely a more honed and a more specific research project, but we will get to that. So we looked at all many different software solutions, different stitching software for the cameras, and then we started moving on to the different workflows streaming wise. So how we actually get from the production environment into a consumer device, which is kind of these things you can see here. Now, a lot of the things that I noticed at this point in time was there are solutions to live stream spatial audio at this point in time, but it is of a low resolution. So we're talking first order ambisonics. We will definitely expand on the idea of what makes audio high resolution within my project. Now, in my current opinion, first order ambisonics is not of a high enough resolution to give the immersive experience required in virtual reality to actually invoke the kind of really immersive worlds that the creators are trying to create. Now, there could be many reasons for this, and that's a very big point that I would like to explore. Now, when it come, well, I then moved on to streaming protocols and encoding. Now, this is very important and specific to my project now, as I've identified it as the technological bottleneck for how we can live stream or even stream over the top immersive audio of a higher resolution than first order ambisonics. Losing my mind a bit, and we've only just started this. So there's plenty there. I'm not going to go into big details about this because at the moment I'm just trying to get a broad sense of how this project is going to explore. Now, other things that have become rather prominent in this kind of, should we call it, a race to achieve better immersive content for virtual reality is the networks with which we can deliver the content down to the user. Now, 5G is being goaded as one of the single biggest factors in how we can actually deliver the more content, larger content, should we say. So the larger video streams, the more audio channels, 5G is going to have the bandwidth up and down that will hopefully enable us. And this is kind of what I talk about in this whole section. It will be something that I explore most certainly within my project, because again, it is part of the bottleneck that is currently preventing the streaming of higher resolution immersive audio. So that we went through a lot of all of this, and then at the end I drew together a lot of my thoughts and made some suggestions. So this was where I ideally decided that this was what I want to explore for my final year project. Now, it goes without it goes without saying at this point in time that while there are systems available, there isn't a mainstream approach to enable the live streaming or even OTT, over the top streaming, of higher order ambisonics, object-based audio, or a mix of these two currently, which does potentially put this project at risk of practically failing. That I don't consider an issue. I feel we are very much on the edge, and there are new codecs and new transport memes, memes, new transport means, new networks, all of these kind of things are what I really want to interrogate and investigate and find out whether or not they can be implemented in the now or in the near future into a workflow that will enable us to stream the kind of resolution that will be immersive in a live stream environment. Now, from here, I just want to quickly move on and talk about my proposal. So this is due this Thursday, pardon me, and this is where I just ideally talk about exactly what I want to do for this project. So in the introduction, ideally we're just saying a lot of what I've been saying so far. So information around the streaming of spatial audio is not conducive enough, so we don't really have anything. There's no real set workflows. There's no one in industry saying, hey, we've done this 15, 20 times, it works. We're using this piece of software. We're using these servers. We're streaming to this device using this application, and we're mixing in the production environment using these tools. There's nothing out there. There's no real case studies of anyone successfully doing anything above first order. Now, before I move on, it is worth mentioning that there is a company called Imeve, IMEVE. They have a piece of software that works with under a handful of virtual reality cameras and ambisonic microphones. In fact, from the last project, which I just was telling you about, we actually did some test runs and some dry runs, and we used this piece of software in conjunction with the Facebook Spatial Audio Workstation, and actually created an immersive first order mix that could be live streamed. So there is a piece of software available currently that has the possibility to live stream spatial audio with virtual reality footage, all stitched on the fly and live streamed. Now it can go to Facebook, it can go up to RTMP server, it can go ideally you can stream it anywhere. So there are possibilities, and there are obviously people exploring these possibilities, but what I would like to explore mostly with this project is the higher resolution spatial audio. So we're talking third order ambisonics as a base point, object-based audio like Dolby Atmos. There's a company called G Audio that have their own GA5 codec, which is a mix of objects and ambisonics. This is something I would like to explore. And there is also a company called Mac One, who have a very different approach. Now, I haven't done enough conducive research to kind of comment on their approach yet. And there are lots of different softwares with which to achieve spatial audio mixes. So the bottleneck isn't there. It is most certainly within the encoding and transmission. And while we have there are codecs being developed like MPEG-H and AC4, it doesn't currently appear like they're being implemented within streaming servers, in the servers themselves, to allow for the kind of multi-channel audio that I'm going to require to achieve the objective. So basically this is kind of what I'm running through. So the primary objective is to demonstrate a proven method to stream high resolution immersive audio with a high resolution video component from a production environment to a consumer via an online streaming platform. Now the key thing here is the audio. Now while it is important that the video is of a high resolution, I'm talking 4K and up. it's the immersive audio which we're really interested in this project. There are lots of certain specific small goals and objectives that I'd like to kind of hit along the way, and that's going to help me plan what I need to achieve. Lots of different resources here, so on and so forth. Now, I don't really want to run. I've obviously got quite a bit of research. I've done quite a bit already. I've even done some test streams. There has been work already towards this. The problem now is to collate all of the research which I have, which if I can pull up a web browser. Let's pull this over to pull this over to here. So ideally I've been stocking up for quite a while now, lots and lots of different resources for a lot of my research. And in fact, if I just pull this fellow over here, this is where I'm going to be storing a lot of my bibliography for citations and so on and so forth. This is where I'm storing everything. Now, what's quite useful about this tool is if I just want to have a little look at this, I can double click it and it'll take me straight to the website. This is really useful. When I'm running through my research and I remember I saw something, there is a central place that I can run to and I can find it quickly. Okay, I'm going to try and wrap this up because I understand this video is getting a little bit long now. Now, the final thing I just want to run into is I've started compiling my dissertation. So this is just something that I can write into while I'm working. And obviously it will probably look and sound quite different by the time I've finished. Now, so far we're looking at literature review where first and foremost, we're going to look at the workflows. We're going to look at very simplified, more simplified than in the previous report I showed you. I'm going to try and zoom in on this here so that we can see. So instead of specifying exactly, we're just these are the kind of building blocks which are expected. This potentially might not be exactly how it works, but this is what is expected in a workflow to create the objectives that I'm trying to achieve. Now, by defining these early on in my literature review, I can then pull them apart, break down each block, and then talk exactly about what is required in each block. So we have the DAW and audio encode sections here. Now this I'm gonna kind of cover this by looking at a software review, and we're going to take examples of audio that I already have and audio that I can go on to record, and we're going to process it, and we're going to make audio mixes, spatial audio mixes, and then we're going to use those. We're going to show those to people, take questionnaires. We're going to we're going to do a bit of quantitative research, and we're going to try and define what audio scheme. So when I say audio scheme, I'm talking ambisonics, object-based, mixture of the two. When I say ambisonics, we mean scene-based audio. So we're going to be looking at those, and we're going to be trying to find out which is the best, which offers the best resolution, and which is the one that would ideally, in an ideal situation, be the scheme with which to implement in a high resolution streaming environment. Now, that's not to say that that will be the one that is used, because each scheme has its current limitations and what is actually possible. So I may get an answer in that section that that potentially isn't what I want, because say for instance we come to the end of a study of all of these different assets that I've collected, and the general consensus is that object-based audio would be the avenue to pursue. There aren't many documented examples of object-based audio being streamed with virtual reality. So it might be too difficult to actually implement that, but it's also interesting to know if it were to be the case. Anyway, from there we're gonna be looking at going to be taking a nice big look at streaming engines and content delivery networks, which is where we're currently seeing the bottleneck. We have MPEG Dash, adaptive streaming, and the audio codecs that a lot of these content delivery networks and streaming engines take are not the ones which allow for the amount of audio channels that could be expected when streaming immersive audio formats. And the next problem is the actual device itself. Now, it's worth mentioning that not only does the media server itself have to accept the codec as an encoded form, but the VR device itself actually has to be able to read the container and decode the audio codec. So what I mean by that is, if we say in pop this back up here. So here, where we're multiplexing our video and our audio together. Now, if we're live streaming, we might get something like a .ts, which is it's a transport stream where we can multiplex, say a H.264 codec encoded video, and say MPEG-H encoded audio together into this .ts stream, which is then sent in packets to the cloud streaming engine. We then need to make sure down at this end that there's some sort of application or client that can accept and decode a .ts with an MPEG-H and a H.264. This is just an example. I'm just pulling these ideas out of my hat, but this is also potentially a problem. Just in the last few days, there have been new headsets released. This is something we expect to see quite regularly. So in the space of the 8 months from which I'm undertaking this project, we can expect the parameters to change quite a bit. And hopefully by the end of it, we can have a proven example of a live streamed virtual reality video with high resolution spatial audio.